We'll give it another 30 seconds or so, and I'll get started. Seeing 11 participants already jumped in. I know a lot of people are watching from the lobby. So today I'm not going to go through and teach you about building LMs or the deep dark web secrets of generative AI, more of a conceptual overview, kind of a conversation about the journey of AI, how I've used it, my approach to leveraging it, a little bit of my background. I am an executive in IT, retail space. I've worked at a lot of retail companies. Also have a background in the military, U.S. military.
Swing by before one. You trying to get a hold of me?
So apologize for that. Work never stops, as you can understand. I am going to walk through quite a few slides, chat, ask questions. I can hang around after, but I'll just go ahead and jump in. Kind of talked a little bit about myself here already. Looking forward to sharing some of this. It is really not about business here. It is about people. So I'm going to jump through quite a few topics. Evolution of digital intelligence, not to recite everything on the screen here, but the joyful side of generative AI. I've had a lot of opportunity to play with it. Transition of autonomous and AI agents. Critical shift, governance, very important area that I'll spend a little bit of time in. Security paradigm. I've got a saying, and I'll share a little bit about the 3 pillars of control. Some people have some concern with that. I'll hopefully put some people to rest, or I may create some fears that you didn't think of. Key players in the arms race, very quickly just run through who I see as people to follow and the generative AI, agentic AI, and what's next, and a reason for hope. This is not a doom and gloom era. This is really an exciting time to be around as we become more prompt masters instead of developers, sometimes become more less data analytics as we do data-driven people that just question and prompt for the answers. So I'm going to jump into some of this information here. The journey, evolution of AI. A lot of people have different views and different entry points. ChatGPT, when it was first spoken to me, I was like, chat what? I wasn't really sure what they were talking about. After a little bit of research, you start seeing how quickly things develop. We went from ChatGPT to agentic AI in a matter of weeks in technology space. It's been obviously a couple of years, but it just feels like time has really flown by. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time here, but I do want to talk about how we define safety in controlling machines. We've gone from machines that only instruct scripts to machines out that set their own goals and execute complex plans, agentic AI. It's where governance is becoming very critical. We look at the evolution scripting. This is no more than a farmhand that has a list of instructions, goes out there, plow the rows, make sure it's a straight line, make sure you don't vary too far, very scriptive. To automation, machine learning, this is more the analytic predicting outcomes. I know that if I get out the end of this row, I'm going to have to turn around, so I'm going to predict that we're going to take a little bit longer because it's slower. To artificial intelligence, I used to love when vendors would come to my office and they would always say AI, artificial intelligence. And to me, it was an oxymoron. Artificial intelligence, there was nothing artificial about it. It was essentially taking scripting, which most of our QA teams are really good at scripting, putting a little bit of machine learning with it and calling it artificial. Nothing really artificial back there, but things are starting to change. We're moving into agentic AI, generative AI. That's where I started to see a real turn of evolution. We're now seeing things that we didn't ask for. We're giving concepts, we're giving overviews of things that we would like to see, and we're presenting them in a different light, looking for different ways to explore data. So I think the move, if you look at the slide here, 4 to 5, what is coming from 5 to 6? And I'll touch on that a little bit in the future here. But it is an exciting time to be around. So there is a fun side. I am a passionate AI person. I just don't talk about AI. I use it a lot. I have generated music. I have about, I think, 9 music albums. I am a producer in music. My wife is a real music artist. I play one on TV. So I've generated a lot of music, published them, used AI to help me publish, distribute. I can now turn a song around, and I know many people are doing this. I do it for fun. I can turn a song around from concept to fully published in about an hour. It used to take me with my wife as a professional singer 4 to 6 months to develop a music and get it out there where people can see it and buy it. That is now done in mere minutes. I've got a 10-year-old that writes movies. He's been working in the world. He's now known as a world leader in Roblox and in generating new content and movies. And he's 10. He's been doing this for 3 years. So as a 7-year-old using generative AI, where are these kids going to be? Very shortly. I developed my own, what I call it, MLM, a micro language model, or a small language model, really to help build a little bit of information about myself. So I take that and I integrate it with my other large language models, and it brings the persona of me. It knows the books I've written. It knows the music. It knows my kids. It knows a lot of information about me that sometimes as I age, my memory lapse. I'm not going to necessarily see that my anniversary is coming up next week, but I'll get a calendar reminder the day of, which by then it's a little bit too late. So this is helping me foresee and head off some of the challenges I have. But why did I build it myself? The reason I built it myself because there was absolutely no way I'm going to take all my personal information, all of my kids' lives, my anniversaries, birth dates, and all that, and put it out in the wild web. So my micro LM sits in my house, fully secured, encrypted. I merged those two together, but there's other ways to use it. I've heard a bunch of presenters earlier today. I think Josh was talking about presenting, what was it, home automation. I am an automation geek. I have a little over 300, close to 300, I think, home automation tools. This is from anything from start my blender, start my coffee, close the garage doors, to taking care and managing my chickens. I did get a chance to listen to the free range chicken conversation earlier. So I leverage AI through my cameras to watch the health of my chickens, to help run my feeders, to turn the lights on and off, to check if there's eggs in the roosts. So AI is not just for business. It is going to become every part of our lives in different ways for those that accept it. It is not a tool to replace us. It's to augment us. It is to take some of that mundane activities out of our way so we can really target on what is most important. For me, most important is time with my kids. I have a farm. I've got goats, chickens. Someone recommended, I guess, some ducks earlier. And I'm leveraging AI to help me run a farm without me having to get up at 4 in the morning, feed the cattle, put out hay, do all that work, worry about the animals. So I get back to doing what I really love to do, and that is spend time with my family. So as we looked at some of the other speakers, some of the things we talked about is the home automation, free range chickens. I'd love to hear in a chat, some people chime up, how are you using Gen AI today to make your life simpler at home? There's a lot of interesting ways. I'd love to learn more about what others are doing with it. So mentioned earlier, there's a lot of breakthroughs, ChatGPT, smart things, Samsung. So part of my engines that I'm right now is I've built custom APIs into smart things in my house. I'm not just doing things like pulling up to the driveway and it recognizes I've parked in the driveway, open the garage door, turn on the lights. It is monitoring the health and wellness of my house. Are the ACs running as efficiently? Am I consuming more electricity than I were last week? Don't just tell me, but do something about it. Look, the garage doors are left open more often. The refrigerators are not running efficiently. Your ice machine is generating ice. Yes, the Samsung will tell you if you're getting ice. I am a fanatic on Samsung. You'll hear that a few times. My TVs, one of my kids watching on TV is inappropriate. So it is becoming a part of my day and life continuously. So again, love to hear people's view on how they're leveraging it in different things. Some other areas that we've talked about: creative studio, developing music, unbiased brainstorming. I often get an idea and I don't know who to talk to at 3 in the morning about these ideas. I'll open up one of my engines and just have a conversation. It's not only looking at that conversation I'm bringing forward, but is looking at the history, the books I've written, the music I've written, the meetings I've had in the past couple of weeks, and is bringing together a response that is me. I'm having a conversation with myself. And it's very often that I find a solution that I had in myself that I didn't even have the ability to tap into. So this brainstorming session has been fantastic. But there also is a little bit of the downside of AI. What can be used for good can also be used for bad. As we move into looking at some of the concerns in AI, transformation to autonomous agentic AI. As I mentioned earlier, I was military, and in the military, there were opportunities for me to, let's say, see things that others wouldn't have the opportunity to see. So as a military individual, I had an opportunity to work at NORAD. We were leveraging technologies that weren't really visible then, but ironically, the movies Transformers were out. Transformers came out in 1984, follow up later in the 80s, another one in the 90s. And people really started considering, is there a reality someday where machines take over the world? I pondered that for quite a while. And I said to myself, as long as we have the control of three things, one of three things, as long as we can shut down power, we can control programming, or we can eliminate communications, that's not going to be an issue. And for decades, none of those things were possible. There was a real physical need to keep these machines up and operational. Everyone knows the power it takes to run an AI engine today. We're struggling in the Northeast to get enough power just to run some of these big data centers. How would you put that into an individual robot to allow it to run itself? So there are some safeguards around there. But as we take more and more of these systems that are setting their own goals, they're putting forth new ideas, they're still being driven and managed and secured and physically maintained by humans. So that is not going to change. So rest easy at this point. I don't think that we're going to be taken over by AI. But there are some other areas that we want to talk a little bit about in the shift. Heidi AI is an example. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of Heidi AI. It is a great tool used by doctors. It lets doctors focus on patients. A lot of value. It's eliminating burnout. Nurses and doctors are working 12, 14-hour shifts. It's eliminating things like not being able to read the scribe, the prescriptions. It is making sure that that data is collected accurately and that it is managed. I'm just kind of looking at some of the notes out there. But there, again, I said earlier, what can be used for good can be used for bad. If you've not heard of AML, it's not automated machine learning, it's adversarial misinformation AI. It's a sense of an AI that is meant to create deep fakes, fraudulent content, mislead, misinformation, and we all seen it online, your social medias, the post, everything's out there. It is a full engine out there for people to fool individuals and also to fool systems. So as AI is learning about us, it's also used to learn about our systems and environments. And as you can feed it more fake data, the harder it is to learn. So it's being used for good. It's also being used by hackers. Hackers are using tools like Robust Toolbox, Fullbox, Counterfeit. There's a lot of different sites out there. I wouldn't recommend going out and playing with them unless you have a really good secure network, but there's an opportunity to look at it. I'd recommend researching it, but I wouldn't install any of those today. So as I mentioned, the three pieces where it becomes more powerful means the more responsibility we have to step up with. Ethical challenges. As we face challenges like bias, misinformation, we're also facing a challenge now where too much information, where the data is getting so large that trunching through that data is becoming a task in itself. Deduplicating, looking for misinformation, cleaning up that data. When you talk about generative AI, data is king. So it is our responsibility to ensure that we do keep the data clean, that we don't just open up to everything out there, because as we talked about earlier, there are tools out there built to make misinformation, and that misinformation is driving bias into our tools. So people are purposely trying to steer what is being responded. If you ask Google, Or yes, Gemini, you go to ChatGPT, you're going to get different answers because they have separate bias that are built in. And that's understood. People are going to use it that way. So always check what is being delivered. And I heard it say from multiple speakers earlier today. Yes, it's going to return a result. Yes, you're going to have some good, rich data, but it's still up to you to verify that that data is accurate and that it is appropriate for what we're doing. Also, keeping out of the hands of some of the adolescents today. The adolescents are taking a lot of what they read online, and adolescents, I have 8 kids, so I have a lot of experience with screwing them up. And I'm glad that my older kids didn't have the opportunity to learn from ChatGPT. It is a great tool again, but it also is a very dangerous tool. So parents, make sure you watch your kids and how they're leveraging this. There's a lot of opportunity out there for kids to be misdirected and missteered with fake information because they're taking it at face value as they see it. Because after all, Google told me it was true, so therefore it must be, right? So governance and transparency and building that framework is essential. So predictions, we already talked about multimodal AIs, talked about personalization. I'm building my own micro engines. I see these micro engines or small machine learning engines becoming the norm. It is going to be part of everyone's smart house in the future. Whether you want to accept it, it'll come to your house. If not, you can choose to not have that. No one's going to be forcing it. But there's going to be a lot of creativity, a lot of things being done in this space. And the continuous learning and adaptation. That's where the agentic is going to take its next step. We're going to go from agentic to truly self-learning, truly self-adapting, and creating. We've not yet created our own language without human intervention. We've improved it. We've transferred information from one programming language to another programming language, but not yet. And I've read a lot of misinformation out there that AI is talking to itself and rewriting its own code and coming up with languages that we can't read and locking us out. That is not the case today. I'm not saying it's not going to happen, but it's not there today. So executive panic room is a word that you may have heard of, you may not, and this is not a place to go hide. It's a place to secure your data-driven frameworks and decisions. It is when your organization is under an ethical siege that we have the same meticulous planning we do with the rest of our DR plans. So make sure you have that backup plan when you have AI trying to take over your data, not your world, but your data. So things will go south. Make sure you have that plan. Anyone that says we will never be hacked is inevitably going to have an opportunity with that. So make sure you have that plan. Make sure you have an executive panic room and that you have ethics and principles around you to support it. So earlier I talked a little bit about the paradigm pillars. Number one pillar is make sure we have the ability to control communication. Starlink out there today is now so large, we've lost that pillar. I believe that pillar one is no longer controllable. It is such a large entity in space, being self-powered, we have lost the ability to completely sever communications at a rapid pace. Not saying it couldn't disappear, but to pull the plug, physically pull the plug is not possible. So we now shifted that vulnerability into a compliance and adherence other than a physical. Number two I talked about was power. You hear a lot about wireless energy that's being harnessed from the earth. We look at Tesla's Earth Harmonics. Why I say it's not viable, why it's not a concern today is what I mentioned earlier. The amount of power it takes to run AI today is unsustainable in a standalone environment. So even though you have communications, you can always reduce this power and shut down power. So we hold tight. Pillar two is still up there and securing us. So it takes a little bit more than someone unplugging a cord today to shut down a computer, but it can be done. And number three, I've already talked about. We don't yet have programming, creating new programming and locking us out. Plenty of opportunities where AI has made a mess of things, have made it where we can't get into systems, but it's not that we get into the systems and they're still in there generating new code and planning to take over the world. So pillars 2 and 3 still stand up. We're still safe. Terminator is not coming in. We're not going to have a T-2030 come up and have to deal with Arnold Schwarzenegger in any time in the near future. people to watch. As I've been playing with AI, and I do call it playing because it's something I love to do. And as I've been working in it, there's a couple of companies that I follow very closely. You can name them, I'm sure everyone heard of all these companies, but top of that list, Microsoft. Microsoft may not be your favorite co-pilot tool out there. People may favor Google's Gemini, looking at different tools. But I tell you the one that is the one to keep an eye on is NVIDIA. The hardware king, how they're using their GPUs and processing with AI is something to really focus on and keep an eye on. So if you watch Microsoft, Google, NVIDIA, and Anthropic, if anyone uses Grok, that tool out there, a lot of people are using on their phones. It is a fascinating technology that is exploding. So if you want to play with that, let me know. I can share some of that information. I do speak very quickly. I had a lot of content to get through, but I'd love to hear any questions or comments as I'm coming up to talk a little bit about reasons for hope. In my life, I've seen moments of profound loss, lost both my parents and my stepfather and my business partner in a period of about 2 years. But with that loss, you can always find a rainbow. And that's where I think that a lot of people are looking at AI as I'm going to lose my job, or I'm going to lose my ability to control things. I'm going to lose the power instead of looking at how do we use it to leverage and solving humanity's greatest problems? How do we look for the rainbow and focus on leveraging it as a augmented tool, not a replacement to human, not as a something that's going to have us sitting at home just eating bonbons and looking for the next TV show, but how do we leverage it to better our lives? And how do we ensure that we can continue to grow with it, not be replaced by it? So there's a lot of hope out there. I feel that the world of AI is just starting. I was talking to a couple of doctors of medicine that work for Microsoft. I guess it was about 6 or 8 months ago. The comment that stuck with me, they said, we're going to advance 150 years in medicine in the next 20 years, leveraging AI. So that is truly a rainbow out there, a focus for us to look for a brighter future. How do we solve and cure diseases that we've been working on for 500 years through history, as far as we've got recordings of different medicine? Now we're going to be solving those in 1, 2, 3 years, down to 1, 2, 3 months. So science is going to be integrated with AI, and we're going to have a healthier country and healthier body. But we have to choose to focus in the right areas, have the right structure in place, have the right governance in place, and ensure that we're using it correctly. So it's everyone's job to make sure that we are focused in the right direction. I like to call it the integrity anchor. AI, as it's coming up on us, it is 90% our choice of how we adopt. 10% of it is going to be pushed on us. We're going to have a lot of tools out there that are going to be required for us, but how we leverage them, 90% of that is purely us. How do we choose as a human race to use this? How do we choose as an individual? How do we choose as a father, a husband, a wife, as an employee? How do we choose to use this? That is what I call the integrity anchor. Find your anchor. Find what makes you feel good about getting things done and at the appropriate level of engagement, and embrace it. The harder you fight, the harder it is going to be to embrace. So embrace AI, embrace where it's going. Definitely question everything. I'm a trust yet verify guy. Being a previous NORAD intelligence guy, I do question everything. My wife hates that, but she also humbled me a lot in those areas as I question things. Sometimes she just looks at me and goes, well, that's the silliest thing I've ever heard. And she was right often. But 90% of what happens with the AI is up to you and how you embrace that. So the journey, it is evolving quickly, as I've already said. The impact is up to us. How do we take the artificial intelligence, the collective AI? How do we take all these different engines out there that are popping up every week? How do we take them and bring that together for good? And how do we control the bad and how it's going to be used? And then how do we have proactive leaders that are out there looking to harness the potential while still keeping that integrity in place? I did walk through this information relatively quickly. I think I'm a little bit early. I would love to hear some comments. I'm not seeing much chat in here, but anything that is open for question, I can jump into any topic, go deeper on how I'm leveraging AI in my house, what type of automation, cameras, switching, lights, AC units. Any questions I'd love to share? Someone said, I'd love to see a breakout of my home assistant setup. Sounds like a lot of fun in there. I can definitely share. It's a combination of different tools, different engines, but I'm also very secure minded. I have, as I said earlier, I super geek. I have 6 VLANs in my house with 3 DIA behind an SD-WAN, ensuring that I don't have crosstalk between my AI engines and my camera system. The last thing I wanted to do was managing my heat and air and running one room at 90 degrees, the other room at 60 degrees, and proactively generating an energy bill that I don't want to pay. What other kind of questions? There was a comment about to check out my book. Absolutely look at that. I've got a couple of books out today on generative AI. Some are a little bit more technical than others. Other are philosophical. It is just a brain dump of what I have seen. A lot of things I've had an opportunity to question over the years, and just love sharing about it. Are there any other questions?
So I am in the Q&A, Thomas, and
Okay.
in case I don't want to miss anything, did you see the one would love to know what hardware you're running in your house for AI processing? Did we cover that?
For AI processing, I've written most of my AI APIs in Python, but I'm running on a iSeries. Don't hold that against me. Just happen to have an old iSeries laying around. So I'm using an IBM stack for processing.
Awesome. Next question. What is the most interesting or novel AI integration you have at home?
Interesting novel AI integration at home. I would say is really monitoring the health of my chickens. I mentioned that earlier, but if anyone that works on a farm knows how much work it is to go out, look at your chickens, see if they're bloated, look at the food, look at the quality of the environment, check the temperatures, turning on lights, shutting doors, making sure the airflow is there. So I've got a complete AI stack that just manages the health of my chickens. I wish I had the same for my goats. They just don't stay in the same place. So I think I know it's probably a silly example, but I want a lot of eggs. I have a large family. I mentioned I have 8 kids. I want to make sure my birds are healthy and I get a lot of eggs out of them. Other than that, I do collect a lot of information about what my kids watch and read and stream through their tools. As I said, my son writes movies, which means he's all over the place researching. I ensure that I don't have to go and read behind them every website they've gone to. What are they looking at? What chat? So I monitor their activities and they know I do that. So I have a health assessment, a digital health assessment of my kids nonstop. I get flags and alerts if they're being solicited for information or being prompted for other things that maybe someone shouldn't have been asking. That's probably the 2 biggest ones, both family related.
Well, interesting. That answer kind of ties into the next question a little bit, which is where do you think social media regulation is going with AI, specifically with kids and developing brains?
That is a really hard question. I am a big fan of freedom of speech. At the same time, I do see the impact on my kids. I have a 5, 7, and 10-year-old. I see the impact on them. I spent a good amount of time last night with my son crying because someone told him his movie sucked. So the emotional impact to a 10-year-old just saying about a movie's bad. I can't imagine what some of these youth are going through today. I think there should be a lot stronger regulation, but I think it should be put in the parents' hands to control that. I think they should be giving options. And I think that's where we're heading. We're heading in these large conglomerates, giving parents the options to see what is out there and control the social media content, not necessarily controlling posts that people don't like outside of any threats of violence, political violence. All that should be 100% blocked. Everything else should be managed and given the tools to the parents. My personal view as a parent.
Awesome. Next question. What are the safest ways, let's say SMB companies can integrate AI?
Don't go at it alone. AI, part of the challenge with AI is the amount of data it absorbs. If you go and start absorbing the data, it's not going to know the difference between your 1990 plan and your 2025 plan because you probably didn't leverage that information in the documents itself. So it's going to start intermingling and mixing information. So using the experts out there to help build that and filter through that is my recommendation. I don't have anyone to recommend. I've used several different companies out there, but find a partner that you know someone else that has used and that they trust and you've seen results from before you jump at it yourself. Because building that engine, if you start wrong, you have a lot of trouble getting it right.
Great answer. Next question. How do you handle measuring energy utilization in the home? And are you using public/private AI to help make intelligent decisions about switching electrical providers?
I I don't yet use it for switching electrical providers because I live on a farm in the middle of nowhere. I'm just happy to have electricity. But when I lived in Houston, yes, I'm using the Honeywell system. Actually, I've got an integrated API into the Honeywell system. It is looking at bringing in the data. If you have a Honeywell, you know it already brings in external information. What is the current weather? What's the weather forecast? What are the things out there? What's the humidity? Based on that information, I'm also using publicly driven information about is there a storm coming? What's the barometric pressure? Pulling that together. And although you can control your house temperature, feel like temperature by adjusting the temperatures based on barometric pressure and humidity. So you can make it feel like it's 70 degrees, even though the temperature actually is fluctuating 3 to 5 degrees through the day. Using AI, I balance that. Feels like temperature in my house, which does save on my electric bill. So I use it to turn the bill on and off. I turn different houses, different rooms in my house on and off. I have digital fans in my blowers and the ducts. So each duct in my house has its own API, or I mean, sorry, IP addressable valve fans. It will turn on and turn off individual, what's the right word? Individual ducts within each room. So that helps me maintain. Sally likes her room this temperature. John likes his room this temperature. Helps me get people's temperatures right. And helps me also control it for the kids. So I'm leveraging a couple of different ways: automated ducts, integrating the API in the Honeywell system, and then using a lot of the smart home smart tools at Samsung, which again, I said I love Samsung Smart Home. Great place to start.
Awesome. Next question kind of ties into a previous question. But what do you see as the biggest missteps organizations make when embarking on their AI journey? Do you think there's a tendency to be technology first rather than problem first in their approach?
The biggest misstep, I said it earlier, and then yes to that second question. The first misstep is putting everything in it. You don't yet have an understanding of what you want to accomplish, so you just say, let's just dump all the data out there. Let's put the data out there, and then we'll find a way to use it. Well, if you didn't go in with a purpose, it's just going to be garbage, and you're going to have a nightmare. So that's probably the biggest misstep. If companies don't go out with an understanding of this is what we're trying to accomplish, they're going to bite off more than they can chew, and the return on that investment is going to be out there 3, 4, 5 years. So that's the struggle. Start small, get it right, build on it. If you jump in head first, you're going to bury yourself, like burying your head in the sand with an ostrich.
Got it. And then another follow-up question in regards to the hardware that you're using in your home. They specifically wanted to know what GPUs you are running.
What GPUs? That is a great question. It's a variety. I can, if that person wants to reach out to me, I will hand them directly because some of it I don't like to share out loud.
Totally understand. Well, gosh, we got through a lot of questions there. We'll give it another minute if we've got a couple more minutes in this session. If anyone else wants to post anything in Q&A that you would like Thomas to address.
I apologize. I missed the Q&A section earlier. I was just watching the chats, but
No, I know there's a couple different ones, and when you're speaking, it's hard to monitor chat and Q&A. So wanted to keep the chat more conversational, but make sure if anyone had specific questions that they could post them in Q&A. So,
and I appreciate John asking the biggest missteps because he's actually seen some of my missteps.
yeah.
And I've known each other a while.
Do you feel like that was a leading question?
It might have been. And Jacob, I will get back with you on some of those GPUs.
Fantastic. All right. Well, thank you, Thomas. Great presentation, great interaction from the group. We will have this session recorded and available as well as Thomas's slides. Hopefully you all got your kits with his book. So really appreciate your time and expertise here today, Thomas.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Okay.
Have a good day. Bye.
Take care.
Hello, everybody. I just wanted to get on here and let you all know that there has been a schedule change. The 3:10 AI roundtable has been canceled due to a panelist emergency that went on. So we have went ahead and rescheduled the FCON wrap up. So if you have gone through the process to visit all of our sponsor booths over the course of these 3 days, just go ahead and join that at 3:05. It may take a minute for it to populate into y'all's lobby schedule, but just want to let you know that we will be going live at that FCON wrap up call at 3:05, where we will finish off the FCON 2025 series and then announce the winner of the drone. So just wanted to give everybody a heads up there. But moving on to our next session, starting at 1:30, is the I Am Machine, a discussion with Lynn No, the world's first augmented ethical hacker. So we will see you guys in that session here shortly. Thank you all.